We're about to take you behind the scenes of the criminal investigation of California's deadliest wildfire.
This is the hook that killed 84 people.
The Camp Fire earned PG&E the largest corporate homicide conviction in U.S. history, including 84 felony counts of involuntary manslaughter.
PG&E's decision was simply just to let these things hang until they broke.
Butte County prosecutors spent hours with us. They answered every question we asked.
It would seem that if you're investigating this really complex industry, that the state's experts on that industry would be invaluable.
Correct.
This is the most shocking revelation from the prosecutors. They told us that instead of helping, California's state government got in their way.
Did it hold the case back?
We believe it did.
Specifically, District Attorney Mike Ramsey said, the California Public Utilities Commission, the regulator that approves PG&E's rates and spending, made it harder to convict PG&E. His deputy, Mark Knoll, the lead prosecutor on the case, said the CPUC had reams of evidence showing that PG&E's maintenance work was reckless and negligent, but the agency wouldn't share it.
There was a lot of stuff that I wish we'd have had months earlier.
But the PUC wasn't in a cooperative mood.
No, they wouldn't give it to us without a subpoena.
To get those subpoenas, the prosecution had to put together a grand jury to hear their case. That didn't only hold up evidence, prosecutors say it also kept them from talking to CPUC staff, the state employees who know the very most about how PG&E works.
Can you give us not just the information that you got, but give us some experts? Oh, no, you gotta subpoena them.
I mean, do you run into that kind of thing with any state agency prosecuting crimes?
Usually not, no.
The CPUC is led by President Mary Bell Batcher. Like Governor Gavin Newsom, who appointed her, she's delivered tough talk to PG&E.
You guys failed on so many levels.
Batcher declined to be interviewed for this series. In a written statement, the PUC told us it was disappointed by the characterization that prosecutors gave of the agency's behavior.
Why can't we work together?
You still don't have a good answer.
No.
The Camp Fire was also harder to prosecute because PG&E is a corporation. American law treats corporations just like people, which means we've written a lie into our laws. PG&E isn't one person, it's a whole bunch of people. And unlike a human defendant, you can't put a corporation in jail. Not only that, we learned PG&E got to participate in the investigation of its own crimes.
Literally, we're letting the murderer into the crime scene and telling them to collect our evidence for us.
Because big high-tension lines are dangerous, you need qualified linemen to take them apart. The state government doesn't have any investigators qualified to do that. Lead prosecutor Mark Knoll says he tried to hire outside experts to pull parts off of PG&E's power line.
And they all refused.
Some, he said, were blunt about why.
Because PG&E is our biggest client.
In the end, most of the evidence from PG&E's power line was taken down by PG&E itself.
It killed us. We delayed, trying to avoid letting them into our crime scene.
But the prosecutors felt pressured by PG&E.
It became a race.
Even though the company decided to permanently shut down this century-old high-voltage line, the prosecutors told us PG&E started fixing it, replacing the parts prosecutors wanted as evidence.
Every single piece also was being documented by PG&E. It obviously gives them a head start on what the evidence is. I can guarantee you if this would have gone to trial, PG&E would have had 427 different explanations for everything we did.
The fact that PG&E isn't really a person also gets them out of punishment. You or I would get 90 years in prison for committing PG&E's crimes. But corporations can't go to prison.
The penal system needs to be changed. A $10,000 fine, that's what my father's worth.
PG&E is a massive company. From the bills people pay, PG&E earns about $17 billion in annual revenue. That breaks down to about $2 million an hour, every hour, 365 days a year. For perpetrating the biggest corporate manslaughter in U.S. history, PG&E paid a criminal fine of just $3.5 million. It was the maximum punishment. California law charges corporate criminals the same fines as people. A penalty so small, PG&E made that money back in less time than it took to chauffeur these executives back to San Francisco. Prosecutors did try to put someone behind bars. They didn't go after the line workers who drive PG&E trucks, but the criminal investigation did probe a small core group of PG&E leaders and managers.
Probably half dozen. The key players who were making the decisions that ultimately caused this.
And just no one of them got to the point where you could develop the case to put the charges on them.
Right.
Prosecutors told us everyone in PG&E had somebody else to blame.
The Tower Division says, we're responsible for the steel structure of the tower. And the Line Division says, well, we're responsible for the lines. Well, who's responsible for the hook? Oh, that's their job.
The closest thing to a punishment for PG&E's executives was a field trip.
The upper management had to take a bus tour through Paradise.
U.S. District Judge William Alsup supervises PG&E's probation for the San Bruno explosion. He ordered PG&E's leaders to take a bus tour through the ruins of Paradise. They met some survivors, and on board the tour bus, a recording played.
Are you trapped?
Yes.
Is your...
Okay,
are you out?
That is the Heffron family on the phone with 911.
We can't get you to street, but we can't see it.
Okay, so all your family...
And then to hear them die on tape. I've done this over 40 years. And that was the most horrible tape I've ever heard. You cannot unhear it.
And apparently some of these people cried. And I'm sorry, but these sons of bitches, they did not earn the right to cry. They did not earn the right to cry. I've earned the right to cry. A lot of people who lost people up there, they have the right to cry. PG&E, what right do they have to cry?
Even so, District Attorney Mike Ramsey told us PG&E tried to get out of being charged with a crime at all.
There was a number of offers of rather large money to say, do this civilly. Don't charge them criminally.
They were trying to use the bankruptcy to get out of being charged.
Correct.
Even if the punishment didn't fit the crime, prosecutors wanted to make PG&E own up to committing it, so all of us could see it for what it was, in black and white. Criminal negligence is more than just carelessness. PG&E admits that it behaved in a reckless way that creates a high risk of death, that it knew what it was doing could end up killing people.
There's no, oh, okay, well, we paid a civil fine in the usual way on a civil fine, and no one admits any liability. No, you're tagged a killer.
They also wanted to build a record, to put PG&E on notice.
You are now warned. By doing this, you can now be charged with murder.
On the next Firepower Money,
Why shouldn't the state be looking at revoking your monopoly license?
That's up to other people to address.
Friday will be my last day.
Tomorrow?
Yes, because I whistle blew on the PUC where I work.
What would you say to the people of Paradise?
That I'm sorry and I'm sad.
She's the first person in all of this I've heard say she was sorry.